So this one I'm just curious about your opinion,
Okay.
because we've both read these. Overall, Agatha Christie is a better author than Arthur. I'm gonna try that again. Hi everybody, my name is Kelsey, I have a Chris, and we're about to get very, very nerdy with Unpopular Opinions. So I thought this would be kind of an interesting take on the usual reacting to unpopular opinions, where lots of booktubers will like ask the people that watch their videos to send some in and they'll react. And I thought it'd be kind of fun to just find some online and have the husband here, and we could kind of react to them together, considering that like I would say pretty well versed in the online book community, and you were very much not.
Very much not.
So it would be kind of funny to see what is considered unpopular, and also if we agree, disagree, thoughts on them, etc.
Etc.
Awesome sauce. So first off, I found the BuzzFeed article that says unpopular opinions. So these are very specific and very not. Like some are very specific and some are very not. So any kind of article I find, I'll link down below if you'd like to check out what it is. These are really just random things. But the very first one, are you ready?
I'm ready.
The movie can be better than the book. What do you think? Yay or nay?
Can? Yes. Is? No.
No? Okay.
Not exclusively, but for the most part, like, a lot of times when you're reading a book, you've got it in your head, and you're like, oh, if they do this in the movie, this could be super cool, and then they don't do it in the movie. So, that's kind of my thought on...
No, I think most books are better, but it's not always the case when it comes to it. It just kind of depends on how good the book is written, I guess.
Yeah, and how well it's adapted.
That's true. Especially if the author is involved in some way, I always feel better about the adaptation than if the author's not involved at all.
Yeah.
This is a very long one, but it boils down to men should read more romance novels, because it'll help them out. I don't know how to feel about that one.
I don't know how to feel about that one. I mean, I'm going to go with yes.
Well, it says right here, this is from very clearly a guy's perspective, and it says, they're different from what's typically expected on ourselves, especially here in the States. There's just a stupid stigma amongst ourselves. I'm a large bearded fellow who works with grain, and I enjoy a warm, fuzzy, cute romance novel. People can fight me on it.
I mean, I think that romance novels are fine.
Yeah, you don't really read many. I
don't really read many. I enjoy a romance plot line, but I don't enjoy the book being about romance, I guess.
That's true. I get that. I mean, I think if you enjoy romance, you should read romance regardless of what your gender is, but...
Read what makes you happy.
Right.
If it doesn't bring you joy, do not read it.
Can Marie Kondo this?
Yes.
The next one is physical books aren't superior to reading digitally. Which is usually the reverse of what you would expect people to say.
It is... Reading books is not better than reading it? It's not
better. They're saying that reading digitally is better than reading physically. Like reading on your Kindle is better than reading a physical book. I say it depends.
I'm trying to come up with a nice way to call these people stupid.
I mean, I
understand the benefits of e-readers and digital books. But for me, that doesn't work.
Yeah, you prefer it in your hands.
Yeah, I have read on an iPad. I've got the Kindle app on my iPad, and that's how I read Pride and Prejudice. And that's fine. But there's games I can play too, and if I've got that in my hands, I'd rather play a game than read a book.
That's fair.
I tried to read on my computer, but there's other things I can do on my computer than read. Yeah. So maybe if I had an e-reader, I would be more inclined to say yes, but anytime I read, like, on my mom's Kindle, it was like, "You have 12% left in this chapter," and I'm like, "What does that even mean?"
It's before they updated the Kindle and actually told you how many, like,
Yeah, I was like, I have to know how many pages I have left.
stuff was. Yeah. I like both. I mean, I prefer physical always, but
Clearly.
clearly, but I do like having the Kindle is really helpful when you're traveling, and if I'm going to the doctor's office, I know I'm going to wait forever, then having it there.
Yeah.
And having the app on my phone if I'm in a situation where I am waiting and I didn't realize I was waiting.
Yeah, I just listened to the Office Ladies podcast last week about the episode. Oh man, I feel like such a terrible Office fan now. It's the one with the New Year's resolutions, and they're all making New Year's resolutions. But Daryl goes to a bookstore, and the lady at the bookstore sells him on an e-reader, and he's like, I mean, these are bad for me because I work for a paper company, but it's like, it holds 10,000 books and I'm trying to read more. So, like, I get it and I understand the appeal, but it's not for everybody.
No. I mean, yeah, I get it. It's easier to.
So when one says it's
rent.
it is exclusively superior, like, it's the same as somebody saying physical books are exclusively superior or audiobooks are exclusively superior. What works for you doesn't work for me.
Yeah, and that's fair, because, like, I read on all formats, and you read pretty much only physically.
Yeah.
You don't have any other options. Or you don't like the other options. So, yeah, no, I agree with that. I think it's personal preference.
Speaking in absolutes is not going to
That's true.
It's not going to win me over in your unpopular opinion.
That's true. This kind of relates back to the movie question, and this one says that an adaptation of a book doesn't have to be exactly the same as the. Sorry, did that make sense? Do you want to try that again?
No, that makes sense.
Okay.
I'm gonna say the same thing. When you speak in absolutes, it's going to be hard to sway me. When you speak in generalities, I'm going to agree with you. It doesn't have to be exactly the same.
It doesn't. Well, it's also a different medium. You have books and you have movies, and like what you can get in a character's head in a book you can't do in a movie, and so you need to show more visual stuff. So, like, that's always been my argument, is I never expect the adaptation to be exactly like the book. Right. I hope it's not.
Right.
Because it's not going to work in the same situation.
You've got Morgan Freeman narrating over in Shawshank Redemption. Andy Dufresne was, like, you've got him narrating over the top to say what's inside somebody's head.
And it works in some cases.
And it works for that, but, not
everything.
And Lord of the Rings, you don't want somebody narrating over the top. Good Lord.
That would be the longest movie ever. It's already the longest movie ever.
We would still be watching the first one. We started it a year ago.
I hate when books bring real world stuff like coronavirus, politics, etc. into the plot. I personally like it. I feel like I can relate to it more. It depends on where your mindset is. Like, during 2020, I did not want to read about a virus, but now I can read about a virus or like a quarantine or something like that.
I'm gonna say I like it because it places it in a piece of time and therefore makes it timeless. By dating it, it makes it timeless.
Okay.
It's part of what I listen to too many podcasts about The Office. There's one where they talk about why is The Office more popular now than it was when it was on TV. And they're like, because somebody, and I can't remember who it was, said because it's like dated in that period of time. It's like it is like you're watching a documentary now. It's like you're watching these things in that time. And by making it so specific to that particular time, it makes it easier to relate to from a later date because you've got more reference points.
Yeah.
It gives you something to grab onto. So I personally like it.
I just feel like it's something that you can relate to. So, like, if you struggled during the pandemic, like most people did, then if you're reading about the pandemic, you could be like, oh, I remember when that was like this. Or like, I can only imagine like some of the historical fiction books we've got today, people read and can relate to their grandparents because their grandparents lived through it. I think that's
right.
It helps people.
I think the more specific it is, the easier it is for other people to relate to.
I agree. I hate it when the book cover is changed to match the film or show based on it. I like imagining the characters not having the actor you choose invade my idea of the book.
Agreed.
I have always said how much I hate movie covers. They make the book feel cheaply made, if that makes sense. It's like people spend so much time creating these really cool covers when the book first comes out, and you're just gonna slap some people on it. And like, while that might work for some people, because it's gotta have worked, otherwise they would have stopped doing it by now. I just am always more interested in the creativity of the original versus like, just the people.
I'm with you on that. I don't like when the book has the movie title or the movie cover on it. It feels lazy and stolen. It feels like there's no creativity from the publisher if they're taking from the movie, to me. And it feels like, to me, even though I know it's a republish, it's a secondary copy, it's not the first edition, it feels like, oh, the publisher doesn't care enough about this book to give it its own cover. I'm not going to give it. It must not be good enough to read. Is kind of how I feel. I judge books by their covers.
I do too. That's also maybe an unpopular. I feel like most book people do. They tell you not to, but like, I think you got to do what draws you in.
I think don't judge a book by its cover applies more to not books.
Yes, that's fair. I will give you that.
Because I judge all books by their covers. I don't judge people by their covers.
Okay. Trying to read as many books as possible in a month, year, etc., purely to hit a number entirely misses the point of reading.
Yes.
Yeah. As someone who reads a lot, I can agree like this, because I feel like I don't really have a set number of, I want to read this many books a month. I mean, I have a set TBR, but I've never been like, I don't know, even with punishments in my TBR game, I still was like, I'll read what I want to read. And I always would put things I wanted to read on. And if I was feeling a slump coming on, I would just DNF the book. I wouldn't continue with it. So if you're trying to reach a goal, that's awesome. And if that works for you, then great. But if you're not enjoying it anymore, that's where it becomes an issue.
Yeah. For me, as somebody who does not read as much as you do, there's a lot of pressure when I feel like I'm not reading as much as I should be. And I'm like, oh yeah, I haven't read in like 2 months. And when I feel like, oh, I must read 3 books this month, like it adds to my stress level, which is not something that I need to add to.
Yeah, and everyone is that's the biggest thing, is everyone is so different, and you can't base what you were reading and the amount of time that you were reading on anybody else. If you read 1 book a year, then you're a reader.
Right.
Like, that's just, I feel like that's a universal
and it's like
thing.
I mean, I'm a checklist kind of person, but I feel a pressure to hit that checklist or I'm letting somebody down. And the only person I'm letting down is me. And like, it's fine. I'll forgive myself. Like, it's not a big deal, but I still feel that pressure on myself that I put on myself. So when I'm like, you know what? It doesn't matter. You'll read when you read. It lets me focus on other things. And when I'm in the mood to read, I'll read.
Yeah, it's like your mood read is not a constant thing. It's I'm feeling it in the summer or I'm feeling it at Christmas. It's kind of like, or like a random day because you're excited about a book coming out.
Yeah.
It's not.
And
I would say yours is more normal than mine is. Of like, I've always have to be reading a book just because that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
And most people aren't like that. I feel like the book community itself, like online is, but otherwise.
I agree. I will say there are times where I'll plop down and force myself to read a book. And I still enjoy it because it's like, I want to read this book, but I have to force myself to do it. Even though I'm excited about the book, I'm looking forward to what's going to happen in the book. there's always other things I could be doing, and I just have to convince myself that these other things are more important at this, or are less important at this time, or whatever, and just be like, those things will still be there. And that's what I have to do with books too. The book will still be there. I just have to decide which one I'm going to take the priority at that time.
Which makes, that's what I say, that there's that fine line between pressure and making time, what's prioritized.
Yep.
Sometimes it's not reading, and that's totally fine. Sometimes you just want to sit and watch YouTube all day.
Yep.
Sounds nice. Oh, I think you'll like this one. Sometimes the books aren't good, but the characters and concepts are.
Yes.
I can't tell you how many books are like that.
I feel more the opposite. Sometimes,
or vice versa.
Sometimes the books are good, but the characters and concepts are terrible. Like, I think both are true. Because I've definitely read books where I'm like, this book is terrible, but the concept behind it is fascinating.
There's so many
books. In fact,
books.
there's a book series that you love that I hate.
Oh, The School for Good and Evil?
Yes. And I'm like, the concept behind this is brilliant, but this is not what I want it to be.
Yeah, the execution doesn't work for you.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many books I read that are like that, of like, this idea is fantastic, but the execution just didn't work for me for one reason or another. I was thinking of the Inheritance Games.
That's what I was thinking of.
We
both loved the book,
the characters.
But the character, I have no connection to the characters. If they all died tomorrow, I would be just fine, as long as the plot kept going, which I realize is quite the conundrum, but the plot line is just fascinating.
It's so
But the characters are awful human beings.
Which I honestly, to an extent, I feel like is the point.
I think you're probably right.
Because, I mean, it's this family of really rich people. You might have more of a say in this because, like, I've been out of school for so many years and you live it. So this might be not the case for your school, but it says offering incentives to get kids to read is a fantastic idea that should be brought back. When I was in elementary school, we had a system that was the AR, accelerated reading, that assigned points to every book in our school and library. I feel like you did that when you were growing up. I feel like I didn't have that.
We had it at the school I work. Well, one of the schools I work at still uses it.
Okay.
The other one used it until last year or the year before.
Yeah, it just goes on to explain the system, which I'm not going to do. But it's basically like you should
you earn things with your AR points. We had a program where if you hit your AR goal, you could go get a book. And like, that's great, but that's not going to motivate non-readers. That's going to motivate the people who are already reading books, because they're like, ooh, I get a book.
Yeah.
So that particular incentive program failed. I'm looking at the iPad, and it's clearly a picture of pizza, and you earn a Pizza Hut pizza for hitting AR points. The kids at my school would eat that up literally. Like, if they could earn food that they're not going to get most nights, they'd be all about it. Absolutely, I think that needs to come back. And I realized I said that I wasn't going to agree with things that were spoken in absolutes, and then use the word absolutely. I agree with this, but this is one that I think they should bring back for sure.
Like, I remember my library growing up having like if you read 4 books a month, or for 4 books for the summer, it was like summer reading, and you like charted. That's how I even started to chart my reading, was because I started doing that. And they like give you like prizes and stuff. And
I'm pretty sure if you dig deep enough in the deep dark internet and Google my name, there's a picture of me in preschool having won some reading competition where we read the most books. There were like 5 of us, and one of them was one of the groomsmen in my wedding, who he read more books than I did. But it was, it was preschool, so really it was our parents reading us books. But like, I got my picture in the newspaper. When you're like 5 years old, there is nothing more cool than being in the newspaper. I mean, there is now, because nobody has newspapers, but
that's fair.
Like, even something silly like that was incentivizing for me.
Yeah. It's just the idea
We do
of winning.
fundraisers where the kids, like, we do a walkathon where they raise money for school for the dinkiest prizes, and those kids get so excited to win a little thing of nasty slime. Like, it doesn't take much to motivate these kids, but it does take something.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. The idea of rereading versus not rereading.
What is the opinion?
Well, it
Is
says...
the opinion yes, you should reread books, or no, you should not reread
I think
books?
rereading books is crucial to a deep understanding of the work.
I would agree with that. I think if you read it once, you're going to miss things. Anytime I go back and reread it, I'm like, oh, totally missed this. Like, I went back and I've reread several books in the last few years, and I'm like, oh, I had totally forgotten that. Now, there's some books that I read again and I get less out of them. But if I hated the book the first time, I'm going to hate it the second time. And I'm like, I've already read this. I don't have to pay attention to what I'm reading, and then I'm going to miss it. So if you hated the book, rereading it is not going to help. But I think if you're truly trying to get a deep understanding of what the book is, reading it more than once is crucial. I think it's something like 3 times for you to get
you're right.
the full. I feel like that's something that my teachers told me in high school. It didn't stick. I didn't do it, but I think that's what they told me in high school, is that you had to read it like 3 times in order to get a full understanding of it, or something like that.
No, I agree. You get more stuff the more times you read. It's just you. I think you pick and choose what you do when to reread.
Plus, I think there's some nostalgia with rereading.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You find a book that you love, and you're taken back to that time.
I can't tell you how many people get out of reading slumps because they reread their favorites.
Yeah.
That's just so great. It's a comfort thing.
Yeah.
Overall, Agatha Christie is a better author than Arthur Conan Doyle, but Sherlock Holmes is a better character than Poirot. I don't know. I've read one Holmes book.
I would say Agatha Christie is a better writer. I think Arthur Conan Doyle is a better storyteller.
I agree.
I think the Sherlock Holmes stories overall are, like, if you just look at the plot, they are better, but Agatha Christie's writing draws you in more, I think. Because Arthur Conan Doyle, I believe, no, he did have medical training, so him writing from the perspective of Dr. Watson was kind of him writing as him, and it kind of lets him be more surgical in his analysis of what's happening when you're writing as a doctor, but he also was trained as a doctor. So his stuff is like deeper, and it's right. Like, oh yeah, that would for sure kill somebody, because that he's done the research and studied it. Not that I'm saying Agatha Christie doesn't, but there's just something about the Sherlock Holmes books, and Sherlock Holmes as a character is absolutely, I like him better than Poirot, just as a human being. Because even though neither of them have any clue what to do socially, Sherlock Holmes, to me, has the ability to understand social cues, and he can do it, but he only does it when he's playing a character and is doing research, whereas I don't think Poirot can do that. I think Poirot is just socially incompetent, for lack of a better term. Whereas Sherlock Holmes is still, when he is himself, is socially incompetent. They're pretty equal in that sense as themselves, but I think Sherlock Holmes is a more dynamic character and has more to him than Poirot does. Sorry, that was like a 5-minute explanation,
No, I mean,
and you can use like 20 seconds of it. But
I mean, I get it. I feel like Arthur Conan Doyle's writing, I feel like they're both writing is a little stuffy, but I feel like his is more
it's from a different time
stuffy.
period
It's from a different,
too, I think.
But I feel like, you know, Poirot is fine, but we all know who Sherlock is.
Right.
And we all have seen a different version of Sherlock in some way. So.
Plus, Benedict Cumberbatch.
He's amazing. Hardback books are just not as good as paperback.
I disagree because hardback books can take a beating better than paperbacks can. I hate when the cover of my book gets folded. I hate it so much.
I feel like I have more hardbacks just because like of just the newer books that I get, but I feel like I don't have an opinion because I usually have book sleeves and take care of them, usually, fingers crossed. But I feel like you do prefer hardbacks.
At this point, I do prefer hardbacks if I can find it in a hardcover book and a paperback book, all things being equal. I'm going to take the hardcover book.
Yeah.
And I feel like you're the same way. If you found a paperback and a hardcover back that were the same price,
yeah, I'd take
you would take the hardcover back.
Yeah.
The hardcover book, hardcover back. What am I doing? I've said it like 5 times, and I apologize to all of you.
Last one I think that I'm going to do here is this one, which says, just because you have criticisms about the book, it doesn't mean you don't like it or think the whole thing is terrible. Just because I found a plot hole in the book and pointed out doesn't mean I'm hating the book. It just means I found a plot hole in the book.
Yeah, I think if it's a book you can find issues with, it means that you've read it enough times that you're finding these things. It's the same thing with movies or TV shows. You watch it enough times, you're like, yeah, so maybe that isn't exactly how that would work, but and like you make exceptions for it. You accept it with all of its flaws. I mean, to bring the judging book by its cover thing full circle here, like, if you accept a person with all of their flaws, that's a person that you love more than anything else. You can accept the book even with its flaws. That just means that you love it more.
Yeah.
And if you've gone through and found these plot holes, it's not you trying to nitpick the book. It means that you've read it so many times. Going back to rereading the book means you've read it enough times that you have a deeper understanding of what the book is.
Yeah. No, I can't tell you how many times I've read a book that ended up being 4 stars, which is a really good rating. And when I review it, it sounds like I hate it because I found all these issues, but it's just because those are the things I'm talking about. It's not like...
Yeah.
No book is perfect. Even 5 stars that I think are amazing aren't perfect. It's just I'm willing to look over the things that aren't... I'm able to like disband belief on the things that might not work. Well, that was a very chatty video that turned into, I think, some really interesting discussion.
Yeah, have fun editing that.
Thank you. I do think I will need help. But I hope that you guys enjoyed. This was just obviously our opinions on that one article. We only did one. So I'll leave it down below.
Are our opinions on other people's opinions.
Exactly. So let me know if there's anything that we talked about that stuck out to you, if you have opinions on any of the popular opinions that we talked about today. I would love to know your thoughts on them as well, so feel free to leave them all down below.
If you liked this video, and we very much hope that you did, and if you didn't, it would be an unpopular opinion that we will talk about, just not on camera. Go ahead and give this a big ol' thumbs up and subscribe down below. Down below you will also find all of her bookish links that are really there, promise. And we hope that you see her, not me.
Well, you'll be in one soon.
I'll be in one soon, but not the next one. So if you want to see this gorgeous face, she'll see you in the next video. Bye!